Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. Coming up, she's been dubbed the Malala of Afghanistan. Meet the 14-year-old who's been shortlisted for the International Children's Prize for alerting the world to the appalling conditions facing children in refugee camps. As well, we speak to Anna Neistat, one of the world's leading human rights campaigners, on how they often find themselves in the line of fire. And first across the line, in more ways than one, Michelle Payne becomes the first woman jockey ever to win Australia's most prestigious horse race, the Melbourne Cup. But first to our top story, and the young Pakistani Nobel Peace Prize winner Malala has been an inspiration to young people across the world, not least in neighbouring Afghanistan, where 14-year-old Aziza Rahimzada has been leading a campaign of her own. The teenage teacher and activist has also followed in Malala's footsteps by being shortlisted for the International Children's Peace Prize.
They have called her the Afghan Malala, and Aziza Rahimzada is determined to follow in the footsteps of the Pakistani Nobel laureate. Still only 14 years old, Aziza teaches children at this refugee camp in Kabul, where she was born after her family fled the war-torn Parwan province.
I started my career learning circus skills, and then I taught other children circus. The children's smiles made me want to help them more and be kind to them for their enduring smiles.
Aziza works with Mobile Mini Circus for Children, a Danish NGO which educates youngsters through play. It has also enabled her to take on a role in advocating for children's rights. One of her biggest achievements was convincing authorities to allow refugees in Kabul to attend school, opening up the possibility of education to 25,000 children. Aziza's work for promoting education earned her a nomination for the International Children's Peace Prize, previously won by Malala Yousafzai.
I'm very happy to be nominated for the International Prize, and I feel happy for Afghan children.
But in a highly patriarchal society such as Afghanistan, Aziza has needed the support of her family.
We are happy that she's helping these children. We want all Afghan children to be educated.
Whenever she tried taking any step towards promoting education, not just I, but all our family members have encouraged her.
With more than 60% of Afghanistan's population under the age of 25, people like Aziza are vital to building a better future for the country.
Well, Afghanistan is certainly a place where those also campaigning for women's rights can often find their own lives in danger too. Only last month, Amnesty International reported on how Taliban fighters in Kunduz were using a hit list to track down their targets, allegedly including the names and photos of activists. Anna Neistat, a leading human rights expert and specialist in conflict areas, is Amnesty International's Senior Director of Research and joins me in the studio today. Anna, thank you so much for being with us. As I just said there, some of those who are battling for women's rights frequently find themselves also in the line of fire.
That's very true, unfortunately, and Afghanistan is a very good example. Just in April, Amnesty International had a big conference there for female human rights defenders, and it was quite fascinating to see how many they are and how powerful they are in a country like Afghanistan, where it's hard to imagine just existing, functioning as a woman, let alone fighting for human rights. But then, of course, the next thing we know, they came under attack, and in fact, it was quite an effort to get them out to safety.
Is this a constant problem for not only just human rights activists, but aid workers or female aid workers around the world?
Well, I think it's a problem for all human rights defenders and aid workers, and there are, of course, other issues that are very specific to female human rights defenders. First of all, it's interesting that I would say that in most places where I worked, and that's pretty much most of the conflict areas around the world over the last dozen years, there are many more female human rights defenders than male, for a variety of reasons, partially because it's considered more dangerous for men. They're more likely in general to be arrested or to be targeted, because some of the men are fighting because some of the men are gone for whatever reason. So women do take on this burden, and as a result, they become the target of attacks themselves more often than men.
Do they make better human rights campaigners?
Oh, that's a very tricky question. I think in terms of human rights campaigning, it's difficult for me to say, but as a human rights investigators, I think women do have certain advantages. And I'm just speaking from my own experience and from experience of some of my colleagues, where as a woman, because you're seen as less of a threat, it's easier to get to places. Because people, especially female witnesses, seem to have much more trust, or in some places would only talk to you if you're a woman. They would never talk to a male investigator. I also think, that women do in terms of interviewing witnesses, because they're sometimes maybe less focused on themselves, they sometimes make better interviewers.
Now, you're very much known for your work on the ground in Syria when you were with Human Rights Watch, and in fact that became the focus of a documentary called The E-Team. And what you had to do in order to blend in was wear the hijab. That obviously must have helped you when it came to talking to people.
Yeah, for starters, it was a must. I mean, the first time I went into Syria in a covert way. I did travel to Syria officially once, but once we started crossing the border from Turkey, there was no other way. There was no other way. I had to blend in. It was still, there were very few journalists at that time, so I had to be seen as part of the local population. Also, I found that it was much easier for me to interview people, to talk to men, to women, when I was wearing a hijab. I actually got lots of compliments on how good I look in one. And I didn't think it was offensive. I felt that it was totally culturally appropriate, and if it allowed me to do my job, that was what was necessary. It was difficult, it was scary, it was the time when Assad started bombing these cities from airplanes. They started using helicopters. Crossing the border was not easy. I'm very glad that we were able to do the work back then. Right now, as you probably know, it's becoming less and less possible. But at the same time, I also have to say that we relied so heavily on our local fixers and consultants, and many of them were women.
Given the difficult nature of your work, has it taken much of a toll on your personal life?
It's always hard to tell. We never know until we know. I don't think so. I'm making a big effort to keep my family life, my personal life, somewhat removed from my work, and to maintain a certain level of sanity, and to come back in one piece, not only physically, but also emotionally, because that's what the kids want to have. At the same time, I think inevitably, our kids are much more exposed to what's happening around the world, but I don't see it necessarily as a problem.
We've been talking there about Syria and Afghanistan. Both of them are hotspots, certainly when it comes to violence against women, things such as forced marriage, and not to mention other issues such as genital mutilation. How does an organisation such as Amnesty International prioritise those issues?
Very directly, I would say. If you looked at our new strategic plan for 2016-2019, for the next 4 years, you would see that whatever area of work you take, gender mainstreaming is a huge part of it. If we're talking about human rights defenders, which is going to be one of Amnesty's next global campaigns, a huge part of this campaign is focused on female human rights defenders, and Afghanistan was the beginning of this work. If you take one of the campaigns we're running right now, which is called My Body, My Rights, it's all about things like decriminalization of abortion, about giving victims of sexual violence access to justice. We're just about to release some reporting on that in Tunisia, for example, where it has been a big problem and a big focus of our work in North Africa, with some progress, one step forward and 2 steps back, but nonetheless. So pretty much anything. If you take crisis, we're paying particular attention to, for example, if you look at the refugee crisis, right, the fact we are focusing quite a lot on the most vulnerable, and women and children are, of course, among them.
Anna Neistat, I'm afraid we've run out of time. Thank you so much for coming in and talking to us.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
And finally, for people outside of Australia, you probably need to know that on the first Tuesday of November, the whole nation comes to a halt to watch the country's most prestigious horse race. But this year's Melbourne Cup was truly something out of the extraordinary, with a female jockey for the first time ever winning the race. And until then, Michelle Payne had been considered an outsider, but she went on to defy the odds, as Aurore Dupuis reports.
When you think Melbourne Cup, you think glamour, fancy outfits, gorgeous horses, bookmakers, and of course, lots of testosterone. It's a well-known fact, horse racing is considered a man's sport. Only 4 women have ridden in the Cup in 155 years. One of them is Michelle Payne.
Prince and Pins enters history at Flemington, Michelle Payne.
The first female jockey to have won the prize.
Unbelievable. It's like a dream come true. This horse is awesome.
At 30 years old, Michelle Payne has won more than 6 million Australian dollars. That's around 4 million euros. It's the second biggest prize on the planet after the Dubai World Cup. Payne has dedicated her win to female jockeys.
You know what? It's not all about strength. It's so much more involved with that. It's getting the horse into a rhythm. It's getting the horse to try for you. It's being patient. And I'm so glad to win the Melbourne Cup, and hopefully it'll help female jockeys from now on to get more of a go, because I believe that we sort of don't get enough of a go, and hopefully this will help.
Michelle Payne says horse racing is a chauvinistic sport. Throughout her career, she's been teased by male rivals. Now that she's finally clinched the victory, she's told critics to, quote, get stuffed because women can beat the world.
And that's it for now. And if you'd like to comment on what you've just seen, you can head to our Facebook page, that's France24 51%, or do send us a tweet at _51%. Thanks for your feedback so far, and please keep those comments coming in. Until our next program, bye for now.